Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Markus Karlsson. What is the future of Europe? The eurozone debt crisis is still playing out and there are plenty of questions on where we go from here. Well, my guest today says a federal Europe and a post-national revolution is the answer. Guy Verhofstadt is a former Belgian Prime Minister and he's currently a member of the European Parliament. Together with Green MEP Daniel Cohn-Bendit, he's written a manifesto called For Europe. Mr. Verhofstadt is with us on the line from the European Parliament in Brussels. Thanks very much indeed, Mr. Verhofstadt, for speaking to us.
Yes.
Now, talk us through your manifesto. How is a federal Europe the right answer to resolve the debt crisis?
Well, if you compare the figures of the Eurozone, the United States and Japan, everybody can see that we in the Eurozone have a debt of 88%. And that we pay high interest rates, an average of 5%, where the Americans have a higher debt of 102%, and they are only paying 2% of interest rates. And Japan, with 226% of public debt, is only paying 1.5% of interest rates. Why the difference? Well, the reason is that there is a real authority, public authority, a real state behind the yen. There exists a real federal state behind the dollar. And there is no real public authority behind the euro. And in our point of view, that is the real origin of this crisis, the lack of a federal union on the European continent.
But how exactly is a federal union going to resolve the debt crisis? Talk us through the link there.
Well, automatically, if you create an economic, fiscal and political union, you shall have more fiscal discipline in the Eurozone. Secondly, you shall have also real solidarity and a single bond market. And that is very important. A federal union is absolutely necessary to create and to establish a single bond market. And if we can create a single bond market in Europe, we shall lower the interest rates for countries like Spain and Italy, who are not longer capable today to pay interest rates around 5 and 6%. So that's the main.
There is a lot of Euroscepticism out there in a number of member states, in Finland, for instance, in the Netherlands, as well as in the United Kingdom. Do you really think that your manifesto has a chance of becoming reality?
Well, I think it's a very realistic manifesto because I think that it is very unrealistic and even naive to think that we can solve this crisis as we have done it the last 3 years. What we have seen is 25 summits, European summits, European Council, and the only thing what they have produced are half measures, were not very convincing for the financial markets. So this program, this manifesto, is a very realistic way out of the crisis. And it's true, there is Euroscepticism in a number of countries, like in Finland, like in Great Britain. But you see also a change in that. Look to the last elections in the Netherlands, the Dutch elections. Well, the right-wing party of Mr. Wilders have made of this election a real referendum against the euro and against Europe. Well, he lost these elections. He lost 1/3 of his electorate, and it were the pro-European parties who won the Dutch elections a few weeks ago.
The President of the European Commission has also been calling for more Europe, much like yourself. It seems there is a very clear division, though, between the elite in Brussels and the rest of Europe. How do you convince voters, European voters, that this is a good idea?
Well, to explain them that the only way to regain sovereignty in the world of tomorrow is to organize that sovereignty on the European level. I know that many people, nationalists and populists, are saying, no, it's far better if we retreat behind our national borders. We can regain sovereignty, the possibility to decide on our own future. But that is not a reality today. In a globalized world, in which it are the US, China and India who are deciding on world affairs, only the European level can have some weight, can have some influence in world affairs. Look, the G8 of tomorrow, in 20 years, shall only exist of countries like the US, China, Japan, India, Russia, Brazil and Mexico and Indonesia. there shall be no European country in that club of the G8 in the future. So the only way to defend the interest of our citizens and our wealth is to do it by the European level.
All right, I want to turn to more short-term issues now. The Eurozone's bailout fund, the European Stability Mechanism, has just become operational. It has a firepower of some 500 billion euros. Do you think that will be enough? Is that enough to really ring-fence the debt crisis?
I don't think it's the right way to end this crisis. So we need this rescue fund. If there are problems in countries like Spain and Italy, it shall not be enough naturally, because Spain and Italy together have a public debt with far higher than this 440 billion euro that we have in the European Stability Mechanism. In fact, the ESM, the European Stability Mechanism, is like a fire extinguisher. You use it when there is a problem in Greece, in Portugal, in Ireland, or tomorrow in Spain and Italy. And what we need is not a fire extinguisher, what we need is a real firewall around the Eurozone. And the only credible firewall around the Eurozone is a mutualization of the debt, is a Eurobond market or a debt redemption fund, so that we can mutualize debt, that we can increase the liquidity in the bond markets in Europe, and at the same time that we can lower the interest rates, not only for countries like Spain and Italy, but also for the other members of the Eurozone.
But Germany, the Eurozone's biggest member, it has clearly signaled that it does not want Euro bonds. When do you think they could become a reality? What kind of time frame are we looking at for that?
Well, the reason is that every political party in Germany, for the moment, is looking to the national elections in September of next year. That's the reason why I think that a real solution for this crisis can only be found after the German election. And it's also an indication that to govern Europe in an intergovernmental way, giving all the authority, all the power to the heads of states and heads of government is not the way we can manage this Euro crisis. So I think that things can really change fundamentally after these German elections.
All right, I want to turn to Spain next. You may not like this label, but I suppose I could call you or you could be called a Brussels insider. Talk us through, what is the real belief in Brussels? Do you think that Spain will have to ask for a bailout at this stage or in the next few weeks? Talk us through the water cooler conversation, if you will.
Well, I don't know. It is to Spain to decide if they ask for help, yes or no. But in any way, it's always a very critical moment. Why? If Spain doesn't ask for help, doesn't ask for an aid by the European Union, they cannot lower their costs and their interest rates they are paying on their debt. And if Spain is asking for help, that can have a consequence of contagion to other countries. Then people shall say, oh, there is something not quite good in Spain. There is a problem in Spain because the Spanish government is asking for help. So in both cases, it's in any way a problematic situation.
What is your best case scenario, though, when it comes to Spain? You say, of course, it is Spain's decision at the end of the day, but do you think that Spain should jump before it is pushed?
I think it's very important that they are not pushed, not by other countries of the Eurozone, but they are taking this decision on themselves, because otherwise we create a very negative feeling under the Spanish citizens towards other countries in the Eurozone or towards the European Union. And again, the most important thing we can do now is not to increase pressure on Spain, but to increase pressure on Germany to come forward with a real reform of the bond markets in Europe.
Right, we don't have a lot of time left. I just want to ask you one final question. There has been a lot of concern in the markets that Eurozone politicians are not really ready to resolve the debt crisis for real. Do you think that's changing now? What's the attitude like among your fellow lawmakers and among fellow policymakers?
Well, I think that they are still hesitating. To solve this euro crisis, we need a transfer of power and a transfer of competences and a transfer of sovereignty from the national level to the European level. It's very clear that we can only solve this crisis if we establish an economic union, fiscal union and a political union, including all the instruments that you need for that. And there is still a hesitation inside the political leadership in a number of countries to make that transfer of sovereignty and competences. And they hope, there are many politicians still in Europe, they hope that they can escape to transfer this new power to Brussels because there is the intervention of the European Central Bank. As you know, Mr. Draghi has announced this OMT program, and they hope that this shall solve the crisis. In my opinion, that's an error, that's a mistake. Only an economic, fiscal and political union can end this crisis.
All right, Guy Verhofstadt, on that note, we're going to have to wrap it up. Thanks very much indeed for being with us there from the European Parliament in Brussels. And we're also going to wrap up the programme with that. Don't forget that you can get in touch with us through Twitter. My Twitter handle is MarkusF24. If you have any comments or suggestions for this show, do stay with us here at France 24. Don't go away.